Starting fresh. Moving to Thailand with my new girl. That single line on my husband's Facebook page didn't just sting, it detonated. It lit up my monitor at 9:12 a.m. on a Tuesday, while the coffee beside my keyboard went from steaming to stale, and the notification counter sprinted into triple digits. Shocked emojis, pity hearts, old classmates asking what happened, mutual friends typing awkward prayers into the comments like confetti for a funeral I hadn't been invited to. I typed one word back, okay. Then I set the mug down and exhaled slowly, the way I do when code compiles clean after a long night. I'm Elena Mitchell, software engineer in Chicago, debugger by trade, patient by necessity. After 23 years of marriage, my husband Derek decided to announce our ending with a status update. He thought I'd fold. He thought I'd beg. He thought I was still the woman who apologized for taking up space at her own kitchen table. He had no idea. Because while Derek curated his fresh start, I'd been running my own processes in the background for months. Quiet scripts of caution, backups of every document, timestamps of every inconsistency. The changes had crept in last spring. The sudden late nights, the phone that never left his palm, the vague weekend conferences that came with receipts from restaurants I'd never heard of and neighborhoods we'd never visited together. The real breakpoint? His sudden curiosity about our retirement accounts and investment portfolio. Derek, who once called compound interest that math thing Elena likes, began hovering over spreadsheets asking, "So how hard is it to move funds?" My gut threw a red flag so bright it could land planes. In debugging, when something simple suddenly demands attention, you're not looking at a feature, you're looking at a bug. You're overthinking it, my sister Kate said over cappuccinos when I first whispered my suspicions. He wouldn't blow up 23 years. Kate works in banking. She's seen the financial side of heartbreak, but even she wanted to believe I was wrong. I wasn't. I built a folder on my work laptop labeled System Backup 2023, harmless name. Inside, not so harmless, every late-night arrival logged. Screenshots of odd charges, copies of joint account passwords updated and secured. A breadcrumb trail of Derek's new habits, neatly indexed and time-stamped. I didn't cry. I categorized rewind with me for a second. We met at Northwestern, me finishing a master's in computer science, him polishing a business degree and a smile that could talk a doorman into overtime. He was charming, loud where I was quiet, the kind of confident that fills a room and leaves you grateful for the draft. He made me laugh. We married, we bought a Victorian in Lincoln Park that needed more love than we had weekends, and we turned it into a life. My first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. We told ourselves we'd try again when the timing was better. We never did. We poured everything into our careers instead, me climbing through architecture reviews and platform migrations, him riding the corporate ladder at a construction firm. As my title grew, something in Derek shrank. When I was promoted to lead engineer, he smirked and called it playing with computers. When my salary edged past his, he said I was lucky to be a woman in tech these days. I told myself he was joking the way you tell yourself. Thunder is just the sky moving. Furniture. I wanted to believe the noise meant nothing. Then came the dinner party last March. Someone asked about project software at Derek's firm. I'd built enterprise systems just like the one they were describing. I opened my mouth to answer. Derek cut across the table with a laugh. Elena doesn't get into that. She does basic stuff. The room rearranged itself around the sentence. A few nervous laughs, a cough, the silent understanding that my expertise had just been shoved under the rug. I smiled with my teeth and swallowed the fire. That night, I began listening harder. Phone calls he took outside. A new lock on his phone. The name Jessica slipped into stories about a Singapore project, first as a footnote, then as a co-star. Weekends away for strategy, dinners logged as client meetings in neighborhoods where the only thing being constructed was a paper trail. Protect yourself, Kate said later, voice lowered like the room might eavesdrop. He's not just stepping out, he's planning. So I did. I spun up a private email, forwarded bank statements, emptied the attic of our digital life, and stacked it neatly in the cloud under lock and key. I moved what I was legally entitled to into new accounts with fresh credentials. I documented, not to hurt him, but to survive whatever came next. And then the Thailand post hit, a public flourish of audacity. The photo beside it was one I'd taken 6 months earlier at our anniversary dinner. He used a memory of us to introduce a future without me. Strangely, I didn't shake. I felt steady, because for 3 months I'd been meeting with Diana, a top divorce attorney in Chicago, the kind of woman who can smile politely while handing you a legal buzzsaw. We had a plan. We had receipts. We had time on our side. The morning after his announcement, I found Derek in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. He looked me over like a foreman checking a load, calculating what he could haul, what he could dump, how quickly he could drive away. "We should talk," he said, as if we were discussing paint colors. "I've spoken with a lawyer about dividing things up. I'll keep it fair." He laid out his fair-like blueprints. I keep the house. I send him his share of the retirement accounts and our investments. He'll make it easy if I don't make it messy. He said the word messy the way he says traffic, as if inconvenience is a moral failing. I stirred my coffee. "Of course. I'll have my attorney look it over." For a blink, his expression cracked, then reassembled into patronizing concern. "Your attorney? Elena, come on. You're not built for litigation." He reached for his phone to check a few balances, and the performance shifted. Frown, tap, harder tap. The pinch between his eyebrows. "That's weird. My banking app isn't logging in." Another app. Another error. The temperature in the room changed. "You might want to check the email you use for our accounts," I said, voice level. "Or try, two-factor authentication." He stared at me like I'd spoken in hex. The silence was almost gentle. "Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this," I say to you, the listener, as we settle in. And if you're enjoying this story so far, give it a like. It really helps the channel. Back in the kitchen, Derek's confidence curdled into confusion. He tried a different account. Another failure. "You can't just, this is my money too." I slid a tidy folder across the counter. "Inside, you'll find copies, unauthorized withdrawals from our joint accounts, transfers to Jessica in Singapore, and that investment account you opened solo and fed like a secret pet. Originals are with my lawyer." Color climbed his neck. "You've been spying. I've been protecting." "There's a difference." I picked up my keys. "And before you test your fresh start plan overseas, tiny note. Thailand has an extradition treaty with the U.S., might complicate the new life timeline." While he retreated to his home office to phone his counsel, voice rising as the word forensic entered his vocabulary, I zipped an overnight bag. Kate had a room ready. Diana had filings queued. The log file of our marriage had been written. Now came the part where we ran it through the parser and printed the truth in black and white. By lunchtime, Derek's swagger had drained out of him like air from a punctured tire. He stepped into the hall, face ashen. "You filed already. Financial abuse? Adultery? They say you have proof." An email pinged on my phone. I read it, a small private smile forming. "The judge just granted an emergency injunction. Our joint assets are frozen pending proceedings." Another ping. "And HR at your company received some anonymous documentation about expense irregularities. Those romantic dinners logged to the Singapore project, for instance. The board will also be looped in." He sank into a chair, hands threading through his hair. For once, Derek didn't have a script. I did. "Comment below what you would have done in this situation. I'd tell you if you were across the table. Because choices make stories and choices brought us here." Chapter 2 gets intense. The tension had shifted now, like a storm that changes direction mid-sky. I left the house with my bag, my folder, and my heartbeat steady. Behind me, Derek stared at a future he didn't recognize, one that didn't bend to his version of fair. By the time I settled into Kate's guest room, Derek's calls had already begun. They swung like a pendulum, rage on one voicemail, desperate begging on the next. "You've ruined my life, Elena." Click. Baby, we can fix this. Please, I made a mistake. Click. But each message was just another receipt. I forwarded them all to Diana. She didn't flinch. Let him keep talking, she told me. Every word is evidence. Meanwhile, Derek's Thailand dream began to crumble piece by piece. His company's HR department launched a full investigation after those anonymous expense reports I slipped across their desk. Every Miami conference, every overpriced dinner with Jessica, every suspicious transfer, it all became part of their internal audit. Jessica herself was a twist I hadn't seen coming. Turns out, Derek's perfect new girlfriend was already married, to a man in Singapore who was just as blindsided as I'd been. When her double life unraveled, she vanished. Deleted her socials. Blocked Derek everywhere. His new beginning had ghosted him and me. I watched from Kate's couch, sipping wine, my laptop balanced on my knees as updates rolled in. Every failed attempt Derek made to access our accounts pinged my phone with fresh security alerts. Every frantic email to our financial advisor was politely bounced back with a note. Please refer to the court order. One night, Kate leaned over with a look that was half awe, half worry. You've got him cornered? But aren't you scared he might try something drastic? I shook my head. That's why I saved everything. Screenshots, his Facebook post, even the comments. If he lashes out, it'll only prove my case. And Derek was lashing out, just not at me directly. His lawyer, the expensive one he'd bragged about, withdrew from his case after Diana handed over the mountain of evidence I'd built. I later learned the man wanted nothing to do with a sinking ship. Derek scrambled for cheaper counsel, someone less seasoned, less intimidating. Meanwhile, Diana sharpened every filing like a blade. The breaking point came when Derek's company reached their conclusion. Not only had he been funding his affair with corporate money, he'd been embezzling for years. Budgets skimmed. Invoices altered. The audit turned into a criminal investigation. The same man who once called me just a computer nerd now sat on the edge of a couch, staring into his hands, his empire collapsing around him because he never realized the one skill he mocked me for, attention to detail, was the one thing that would bring him down. I'll never forget his face when Diana called me into her office. Email pulled up on her screen, voice dry as paper. Still think he's headed to Thailand? We laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly poetic. Derek had treated me like the weakest piece of code in his system. What he didn't understand was that I had already debugged his entire plan. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're enjoying the story so far. I'd say to you, my listener, right here. It really helps the channel. And trust me, Chapter 3 is where it gets satisfying. Because as bad as things looked for Derek, they were about to get worse. 3 weeks after Derek's shiny Facebook Fresh Start announcement, I returned to our house to collect a few more things. He was there, slumped on the front steps, unshaven, his shirt wrinkled, his shoulders collapsed inward like scaffolding on a condemned building. This wasn't the confident executive who strutted through boardrooms. This was a man unraveling. Elena, he called out, voice hoarse. Please, can we just talk? I've lost everything. My job, my reputation. Jessica won't even answer my calls. I paused at the door, keys in hand, studying him like an old photo I no longer recognized. And whose fault is that? I asked, finally turning. You didn't just leave me, Derek. You tried to erase me. You thought I'd sit quietly while you drained our accounts and ran off to paradise with a woman who was never yours in the first place. His eyes filled, desperate. I never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did, I cut him off. The only thing you didn't mean to do was fail. I pulled out my phone, showed him his own Facebook post. You wanted the world to see your victory lap. Turns out all you did was give me the opening to take the wheel. Later that week, Diana delivered the knockout punch. Derek's company officially terminated him and filed criminal charges for embezzlement. The man who mocked my silly computer work was now being undone by the very digital paper trails he thought no one noticed. His credit cards frozen. His accounts locked. His legal options shrinking by the day. And me? My life was just beginning. The divorce settlement handed me the house, full control of my retirement accounts, and something far more valuable: freedom. Kate helped me repaint, rearrange, and reclaim the space until Derek's shadow felt like nothing more than a smudge on the past. But here's the twist Derek never saw coming. I didn't just survive, I built something new. The meticulous notes I'd kept, the strategies I used to protect myself, I turned them into workshops for women navigating divorce and financial abuse. 8 women showed up to the first one. They scribbled notes, asked questions, left with a spark in their eyes I recognized. By the second month, I was speaking at legal conferences. Attorneys referred clients to me. Survivors leaned on me. Teach a class, they urged. So I did. Months later, as Derek accepted an 18-month prison sentence in exchange for a plea deal, I was standing on a stage, speaking to a ballroom full of women about financial self-defense. They clapped. They cried. They thanked me. And in that moment, I realized something vital. Derek's betrayal hadn't broken me. It had redirected me. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying the other person. Sometimes it's about building something so strong, so undeniable, that their memory shrinks into irrelevance. A year after Derek's Facebook post, I received an email from his sister, Marie. She'd attended one of my workshops. I always knew Derek was selfish, she wrote, but I never realized how cruel. I'm proud of you for fighting back. Her words hit differently. Not pity, not sympathy, pride, from his own family. And that's when I understood. The best revenge isn't leaving someone in ruins. It's standing in the ruins they created. Thriving. So yes, Derek wanted a fresh start. And he got one. Just not the kind he imagined. He started over in a minimum security prison. I started over on stages, in workshops, in books, in lives I helped change. He underestimated me. I underestimated myself. And now? I'm just getting started. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories like this one, I'd tell you here at the end. And drop a comment. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Because I know one thing. Derek never expected I'd walk away stronger than ever.